Yeah, we got one.
Nobody
right
wants to
here.
sit up front, I
I know, right?
It's too bright up here.
Lights on you.
Kind of dim them?
Yes.
These could be dimmed.
Or are they over here?
No, you put them in there. The place to be on Wednesday night, for sure. We'll talk a little bit more about Valentine's Day after we're done here.
There's a seat up here.
Prius on the street parked with its dome light on.
Prius on the street with its dome light on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello there, how are you? Save that one just for you, Dan.
Oh, there she is.
So, she'll take care of her Prius and then come back. I don't know if anybody new to meditation here? Kind of fairly new? Okay. Okay, great. We always have a mixture, of people that have been meditating for too many years and people that are new, That's, too many years is just a joke. You can't meditate too many years,
That's right.
like, too old or something. Forget it. But thank you everybody for coming, and just a little bit about meditation. Something to remember. Some of you were in the teacher training program, Paul, and there's a couple of areas that we should always consider in meditation. And the first one, if I remember right, I should know this, it's place, posture, object, and basically that's the important things. I mean, as far as when we sit down and think about meditation, of course we want to have a place, a good place. When we're in a group situation like this, there's a place provided, of course, but the place that I'm thinking about primarily is at home. Where do we meditate at home? Like, do we have a place that we just go to, where we don't have to think about it? Think about, where am I going to meditate? Where I won't be bothered, that kind of thing. And so everybody, if you're lucky enough to have a meditation room or something, or a meditation corner, maybe a meditation chair. Who does not have that? You don't?
Well, there's no designated room for.
Do you have a place that you meditate?
Just use the living room.
Oh. Do you live alone?
Yeah.
Then it's easier that way.
Unoccupied.
Yeah. Just go in your living room. So you don't have to think. You don't have to think about how quiet it's going to be, because it's the same. But I think it's important, if I say, where's your meditation place at home, that you have one, or sometimes several. You can have a place outside, out on a balcony or something like that, and it's important. The Buddhist sutras often talked about places to meditate, abandoned buildings, underneath trees in the forest and things like that. He talked about places a lot. The other thing is posture. Whether we sit in a chair or a cushion, it's fine. But posture is keeping the back fairly straight, and to be comfortable. That also means what kind of equipment we're using. In other words, we don't have to spend money on cushions and zabutons or fancy benches like this or anything like that. If we don't have a cushion, just use a folded blanket. It works real well. Kind of get elevated a little bit, and you're ready to go. And if you have your place, that's where you should keep your cushion. It should be all set up to go, And also, if you have that little sacred place, you can put some other things there, a book or something. And some people like to light incense, things like that. I used to have when I was living in this building, I would meditate I had a meditation room here, but I also had a place out in the a patio that I would sit and meditate. I had things out there where I would sit, and I kind of devised a little altar. I had a little Buddha on there, and I haven't done that for quite a while, but at that time it was really important to me, for me to have that. And I would light incense. And one of the reasons I would do it is because I used it as a timer, it would take, this incense that I was using, it would take about a half hour for that incense to burn down. And if it was like windy and cold, it would burn faster because of the wind. And then I was done sooner, so that worked out great that way. And then somebody presents it. I wonder where they are. Somebody said, here's some incense for your meditation. They're like this long, about as big as your finger. I thought, okay. I tried them. They didn't have much of a scent. But to have that, the idea to have that place and to have have it all set up for you, make it easier for yourself to start meditating. And then the meditation object, of course. That's what we focus on. So we focus on whether it's the breath or sounds or pure awareness or whatever it might be. If somebody's starting out meditating, I always suggest using the breath because it's so convenient. It's always there. It can be boring or interesting. Sometimes one breath is boring and the next breath is interesting. But it's something to bring our attention to bring our awareness to. And then our mind will wander off, and we bring it back, and wanders off again, and we bring it back again. And the idea is to sit in that presence as much as we can, and really bask in our aware being. To sit with our true nature, which has everything to do with Valentine's Day, actually. Our true nature is love, and it's actually joy. We are happy, joyful beings when we are able to set aside primarily the thinking mind, the past and the future. And we do that by focusing on our meditation object. And again, our mind will wander off and we bring it back, and we all know how that works, So if some of you are new to meditation, those are some pointers to keep in mind. And consistency, consistency in the practice. A lot of you have heard me mention that before, and how important it is. And it's very important to be very consistent, and that way we can notice the change. Otherwise, if we meditate a couple of times a week, it seems like we're not getting anywhere many of the times. And we've all experienced that, where it just feels like there's not making any progress. And the barometer, for whether your meditation is working or not, is you become more happy. And if you're not becoming more happy, check it out, find out why, and check out if your meditation practice is consistent. Consistency is king in that area. And so the next thing that a person asks is, how long should I be meditating? And that really doesn't matter as long as we're consistent. But if somebody had to have an answer, I would say a minimum of 20 minutes, and more when you start realizing the benefits. So basically what I'm saying is meditation is very, very subtle. It allows us to be sensitive to our surroundings in a good way. We understand ourselves at a much deeper level when we meditate regularly. We become happier beings, easier to get along with, and we enjoy life, and we enjoy people more, actually, through meditation. And it's just got a ton of benefits. We don't even have enough time to cover them all, but maybe we can talk some more about that when we're done meditating here. So the invitation for tonight is to look for that presence, and in that presence, see if you can find that love, that metta. I sent an email out to some of you that are in the Saturday course, and I mentioned that this Valentine's Day thing is more like if it was a Buddhist holiday, it would be Metta Day, Loving Kindness Day, and because it's a time where we think about love. Last year, actually, Wednesday night was on Valentine's Day. Was anybody there for that last year? Just these two lovebirds. We had a special Valentine's Day meditation, and you remember? Yeah. And
We had little gifts and desserts. For
you'll be running the meditation tomorrow night,
Tomorrow
right?
night, yeah.
And that's Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah,
At the Buddhist temple, yeah.
yeah. Paul's going to be running
Will you have a
there.
rose in your teeth? I can do that. I can do
That'd be
that.
kind of like Don Juan.
Pam should come and sit for Valentine's Day.
Yeah. Yeah. She'll probably be the swimming baby,
Yeah.
yeah. But not.
Okay. So we can start tonight by, looking for that presence. Please look for that presence and see if you can get a feel for that love for yourself and for others, the metta. And when we feel metta, that loving kindness, a lot of times we feel it. I'm tapping the microphone, sorry. We feel it right here within the heart or the solar plexus. And it's that feeling, that warm feeling. See if you can pick up on that in your meditation. And see if you can go to the heart. So please make yourself comfortable. I'll guide us through the first part of the meditation. Close the eyes if you like. And bring your attention to the body. Notice how the body feels. And I'd like to have you try something once and see if you can really get a feeling for the body in a very special way. I would like to have you think of something that you really wish for yourself or for others in life, and see where you feel that. And you should know what it is. And if it's something that represents wealth, we don't really want money, for example, but we want what money can provide for us, whether it's freedom or security. And maybe it's none of those things. Maybe there's something else in your life that you want. And this isn't a desire in the way that it's negative, because this should be something that is beneficial for you and even more so beneficial for other people. And see if you can kind of feel that within the body, and see if that is actually felt in the heart. Just sit for a few moments and check that out. What do you really want for yourself and others? And if you have that in mind, that thing that you want, just kind of hold it within the mind's eye, like it's a contemplation. And in contemplation, we don't allow the mind to wander off. We really want to hold that object within the mind's eye. Visualize, if you will, or imagine this thing. And know that if this is healthy and it's working for you, just make sure that, and check to make sure that there's no grasping or clinging. That even if this thing doesn't work out, or this thing isn't something that you will have indefinitely, which it won't, that you'll be okay with it. That wanting something is just human. But check and see if you can feel that within your own heart. See if that's where you feel that thing that you want coming into being. And then without grasping or clinging, just see if you can open up just like opening up the heart chakra a little bit. And if you're catching the mind wandering off into really unnecessary thought, fixing something in the future or thinking of something in the past that happened or should have happened, just try to set that aside and try focusing on the breath. Notice the sensation of the breath where you feel it the most in the body. Many people feel the breath in the tip of the nose. Some people feel it in the sinuses or within the windpipe, perhaps. There's really nothing sacred or special about the breath. We're just using it as a tool to bring about this stillness of mind and calmness of the body. The reason for the stillness or the presence, as mentioned earlier, is to really get to know ourselves at a deeper level and just know that we are joyful, loving beings. In many ways, we can notice that every time we connect with the breath, that we're disconnecting with the hindrances that keep us from being the happy, radiant beings that we are. And if our minds begin to wander too excessively, we can try counting the breaths. Just count one full inhalation and one exhalation as one complete round. And count to whatever number is most satisfying for us. Or we can use the breath to calm areas of the body, or try to make the breath as interesting as we can. Focusing on the top of the inhalation or the bottom of the exhalation, providing energy or relaxation on the bottom of the exhalation. We'll recite the Loving Kindness Sutra together here. To attain the state of peace, one skilled in goodness should be able, upright, perfectly upright, gentle, and kind, and free from pride, contented, easily satisfied, with limited duties and unburdened livelihood, controlled in senses, discreet, reserved, and not blindly attached to groups. One should not commit the slightest wrong, that the wise might censor, wishing, may there be happiness and security, may all beings be happy. Whatever beings there are, whether feeble or strong, tall or short, large, medium or small, microscopic or mammoth, leaving none, seen or unseen, living near or far away, born or to be born, may all beings be happy. Let one not deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither in anger nor in ill will should one wish another harm. Just as a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so, one should cultivate a limitless concern for all living beings. Extend loving kindness throughout the world, without limitation, above, below, and across, free of obstruction, enmity, or hostility. Whether standing, walking, sitting, or lying down, one should diligently sustain this mindfulness. This is called sublime living. Without holding narrow views, but being endowed with broad vision and avoiding attachment to sense desires, the virtuous are not born again into this world. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. And may we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. May we have the patience, the courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you. Very quiet in here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Did you notice that? I hope everybody had what each of us would consider a nice meditation. We can, we set aside this time, about 25 minutes, afterwards to talk about whatever we want to talk about, and any questions that person might have, or any comments or whatever it might be. We can talk about anything, really. Doesn't only have to pertain to Buddhism, but it usually does often seem to pertain to Buddhism or meditation practice somehow. So, are there any questions from anybody? Okay. I was looking through an old book that I had. I have two of them actually, and it's a book that really, really I've read many, many times, and it's like a classic. It was it's translated by I was going to say John Schofield, but he's a guitar player. John Bluefield, who had passed away sometime, but he translated this book back in, I think it was published back in 1954, if I remember right. But it's the Zen Teachings of Hong Po. Anybody ever see that book?
Mm-mm.
Nobody? It's an incredible book. If you ever get a chance, Hong Po was a Chan master, and Chan is the Zen, in China. You know, Chan was first, and then it went across the big pond over to Japan. And some of the Chan masters, some of the monks were just incredible in their knowledge about Buddhism. And and they're very, very forceful teachings. You know, very, very blunt and very. I wonder if I could find something here that I could read to you that you might enjoy listening to. Just to give you an idea of what. I should have looked at this earlier rather than. I'll just pick something here. First of all, I should mention that it's broken into different teachings that he did. One is the Chun Chu record. One of them is the translator's introduction is very, very good. And there's one called the Wang Ling record. And these were all discourses that he gave as a monk, and he was talking to people, and they were asking questions. And I'll just see if I can find something here. Ordinary people all indulge in conceptual thought based on environmental phenomena. Hence, they feel desire and hatred. To eliminate environmental phenomena, just put an end to your conceptual thinking. When this ceases, environmental phenomena are void. And when these are void, thought ceases. But if you try to eliminate environment without first putting a stop to conceptual thought, you will not succeed, but merely increase its power to disturb you. Thus, all things are naught but mind, intangible mind. So what can you hope to attain? Those who are students of prajna, and prajna is it's in this translation it means wisdom. For those students of prajna, hold that there is nothing tangible whatsoever, so they cease thinking of the three vehicles. And the three vehicles are the three great schools of gradual enlightenment. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's only the one reality, neither to be recognized or attained. To say, I am able to realize something or I am able to attain something is to place yourself among the arrogant. The men who flapped their garments and left the meeting as mentioned in the Lotus Sutra were just such people. Therefore, the Buddha said, I only obtained nothing from enlightenment. There is just a mysterious, tacit understanding and more. So this is, it's got some deep, for a lot of people, it's really deep understanding, you know, that is a part of this book. And there's, some of it is different, especially it comes from the Mahayana tradition, so some of it's a little bit different language than we're used to hearing. But it's, I apologize, I should have found something in here that would really be, maybe I'll find something and read it next week, and something that you'll find interesting. Yes?
You could sum it succinctly. What's the difference between the Theravada and the Mahayana traditions?
The Theravada is considered, it's translated as teachings of the elders.
Okay.
And it's the tradition that is more in line with what the actual Buddhist monks were, trained with, and as far as the sutras go. But when we get into Mahayana, there's some lost sutras that they use, and it's almost like in the Tibetan Mahayana traditions. There's kind of a mixture between some of the Hindu beliefs and some of the shamanistic practices and Buddhism. So there's more mixtures in that. Like when you go into Tibet, Tibet by itself is like an island, you know. So there's not as many influences. So they kept that tradition going for a long time. And then, but when you get to the Mahayana, Zen is Mahayana, and you find Mahayana in China and the Chan, and then the Zen in Japan and China, and also Korea. There's subtle differences. They all use, I mean, both areas of Buddhism. You know, they all use the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, for the most part. You know, as far as those teachings go, and they get into when you get into tantric practices, tantrika, that kind of thing. That's Mahayana, and I started out in the Mahayana tradition. It was just a little bit too ritualistic for me, and when I actually went over to Thailand to see what the Theravada tradition was all about, and it resonated with me so much that I started, you know, seeking out teachers in the Theravada tradition. Yeah.
When that Rinpoche came here, I forget his name, with the gangrene leg, the guy that wrote the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was
Okay.
Mahayana, and the thing that stuck with me was he suggested that when you sit, that if you're a female, you have your left hand under your right hand, and it's the opposite for a man. And it's, you know, so I don't know really much about them at all, but I've always heard you say it was more ritualistic, and that was kind of like, oh yeah, like
Yeah,
that
there's
kind
a-
of stuff, where
that's
there's all these different
ritual.
rules, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wasn't one, was the Theravada was taught more in the cities and big villages? Mahayana was more out in the farms? Forests?
No, I think you're thinking of the monastic
Okay.
practices, and then the forest tradition of Theravada.
Yeah.
The forest tradition was really very much what Buddha was practicing. I mean, they were living in the forest, and they were practicing in the forest under the trees, and then they would go into town to do their alms round, you know, to get their food, and that's the practice of the forest tradition for the most part, and they usually do a lot more meditation, because that's what you do in the forest, usually meditate, you know. And then the monastic tradition of the Theravada is a little bit more scholarly, you know, a little bit more. They meditate and they teach as well, but there's more of a.
They're in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially in Sri Lanka, where they have. Seems like every monk has a PhD of some sort. You know, they just have a lot of time to study, I guess.
Yeah.
But. Did that explain your question?
Really well, thank you.
Oh, okay, sure.
It is a big difference, the Bodhisattva tradition, Mahayana's.
Yeah.
Want to come back to health.
Yeah, Chris, you're absolutely right. And there's other differences too, but the in the Theravada tradition, you know, we're trying to break the samsaric chain. I mean, the samsara. We're trying to eliminate the fetters and stop coming back. You know, to jump off the samsaric wheel, if you will. And in the Mahayana tradition, they believe in the bodhisattva, and the bodhisattva takes a vow to not have full enlightenment, but to come back and to help, you know, sentient beings, us, to awaken so that we can all get out of here pretty much at the same time, kind of. And that is a big difference. Thanks for mentioning that, Chris, about the Bodhisattva. So the Dalai Lama is like a rebirth of another Dalai Lama, and he came back to teach and to help us, and he will take the vows again, to come back again. So after he dies, they'll find another reincarnation of him, and then he'll be deemed the next Dalai Lama. What number are we at now? The 13th? We're at the 13th now. I should know that. Then it'll be the 14th, I guess.
What's the deal with that, with the Dalai Lama? Like, they're trying to, I've read and watched some things on it, but where the Chinese have taken the Panchen Lama, who should be the next Dalai Lama,
Yeah.
and they've hid him away, and they think this could be the last Dalai Lama? Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to get too involved with that.
Yeah, I know.
Politics and that.
I haven't got too involved with it, but
It was
yeah,
an interesting story because the Dalai Lama picks the Panchen Lama, and the Panchen Lama decides who the Dalai Lama is going to be. It's
yeah, I'm not sure why or how or what, but there is something about that. I really don't know the details.
I didn't know that it was.
Yeah,
It was
Yeah.
interesting to me. I don't know.
yeah, yeah. Oh, it
He's
is.
always fighting with the Chinese government too.
Yeah,
He's
the-
an exile, right? He was
Yeah.
in India. India
Yeah.
gave him exile many years ago. And there's a big town called Dharamshala where all the Tibetans live now
Yeah.
for years.
yeah.
Well, they
But they
ran out
can't
of
go
Tibet.
back to Tibet. So
Domicile.
Dharamshala.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
That's where they live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I saw the Dalai Lama talking about this a little bit, and his thought was perhaps I'm the last one.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They figured because they've taken the Panchen Lama. He's like 35 or 36 years old now. They took him when he was young,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like 30 years ago.
yeah.
They try and kill off that whole tradition.
Yeah.
Right. No, right. I understand.
Sad,
Yeah.
actually.
It was-
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. When I stepped out of that tradition, I didn't, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that tradition or anything like that, but I was so entrenched in what I was trying to learn, from the Theravada view that I haven't really, looked at that too much. But I did have the opportunity to, to see the Dalai Lama, and kind of an interesting story. The Dalai Lama was speaking in Tucson, of all places, about 7 years ago, maybe, something like that. Maybe longer, maybe 8 years ago. And a friend of mine, she was a nun, a Buddhist nun in that tradition. She said she's been down to Tucson and taking in teachings from the Dalai Lama, for the ordained. And she said, he's giving a public talk, and I have this ticket, and if you want it, I don't know what to do with it, So she gave it to me, and I went down there with some group of friends, and they had their tickets up in the bleachers, up in the balcony, and so I showed my ticket to one of the ushers. Thank you, yeah, ushers, and they just said, pointed down there. So I walked down there, and then I gave it to another usher, and he kept pointing down there, and I couldn't. And the Dalai Lama, he actually started talking about 5 minutes early, and so I was walking down. I mean, the security all over. Security was tight because of, the time that it was and everything, and I couldn't believe it. But I was in the third row of this huge auditorium, and there had all these security guards, and nobody even noticed I was walking. I mean, he was talking, and I was just walking, like I could have been anybody. but so.
They knew it was you.
No, I don't think so. But anyway, I was very blessed to have these wonderful seats right in front of the Dalai Lama. And Rob, pardon me?
Did you vet him that?
No, I didn't. Spoke with Robert Thurman. Do you know who Robert Thurman is? And he was there, and some other famous person, but I can't remember. I don't know.
Richard here.
Richard wasn't there. I didn't see him anyway.
No, it was you. You were there.
To kind of get away from Buddhism, in a way, in Buddhism there's these states. We call them feelings here in the West, but states are very, very much a part of our lives. We find ourselves in certain states, but this is one of the emotional guide scale. You ever see that? This has 22 of them. I'm not sure what is out of. It could be, I suspect it might be from, what's the woman that channels? Esther Hicks.
It's not the vibrational scale of consciousness, is it? It's not the one that David Hawkins.
No, I don't think so. This is another scale, but I found it in this book when I pulled it out. That's why I was looking at it and I go, well, what is this? But I'll just run this by you, and then if you want to take a picture of it before you leave or something, you can. But it's got 22 states, and on the very bottom is, of course, depression, despair, powerlessness, and fear and grief are on the very, very bottom, like the lowest energy states, And then we go up to, this is going to take a while because we're at 21 now. Insecurity, guilt, and unworthiness. These are some pretty low stuff. We get and then we go up to 20, get into jealousy. And, it's something that we all experience. These are something we all know a lot about these states. And a little bit higher on the scale is hatred and rage. In Buddhism, we might even include ill will. That's a real hindrance to our being present and still. And then 18 is revenge. That's something that really works on our mind a lot. Oh, and then 17 is anger. So anger is above hatred. That's interesting. We can be angry at a person, but when we really hate somebody, that's a couple levels lower. We get up to 16, discouragement. When we, kind of a hopeless feeling, discouragement. We get discouraged with things that we're doing or our life in general. And then 15 is blame. That's an area that sorry about that noise there. I downloaded something and I'm getting email chimes. But blame is something that we, it kind of is really heart-wrenching when we blame somebody else for our problems, but when we blame ourselves, it's even more debilitating.
It's like victimhood. Blame
Yeah.
is victimhood.
Yeah.
That mentality.
14 is worry, like restlessness and worry. That's a legitimate hindrance there. Here's another one. 13 is doubt. That's one of the 5 hindrances in Buddhism. 12 is disappointment. It's kind of a general thing. We can be disappointed on a lot of levels. Disappointed in ourselves or others, or just disappointed in something that we were looking forward to or something like that. 11 is overwhelmed. When's the last time you were overwhelmed with work or something? Today?
Today.
4 hours.
That, got that new guy starting at work, and it's just a little bit too much stuff happening there. Number 10 is frustration, which is impatience and irritation. Yeah, that kind of thing. Number 9 is pessimism. Pessimism.
Seeing the dark side of things
Yeah,
and not the
negative.
bright side.
Eeyore.
Eeyore.
What's that?
Eeyore. Oh, boo, it's never gonna work out.
Yeah, yeah.
I love the Pooh character.
And then right above that, that makes sense. Right above that is boredom. Okay, let's do something. You know, a meditator, a good meditator is never bored.
Yeah, so true.
You know, it just doesn't happen because
Yeah.
we got another opportunity to meditate.
Yeah, that
There's a
word.
book out there, it's, the name of it is, Don't Do Something, Just Sit There.
I think I've seen that.
That's
Yeah.
hard for people.
Like, sit there and shut up. Oh, yeah. Number 7 is contentment. So from boredom to contentment, that's quite a leap right there. So we're at number 7, contentment. Starting to feel pretty good here. Number 6 is hopefulness. Ah, there's hope. Number 7 is optimism. I can feel my eyebrows rising when I'm doing this. Number 4 is positive expectation or belief. Have belief in something. I believe I can do that, or I believe that this is going to work. I believe that meditation is going to help, whatever it might be. And number 3, enthusiasm, which is eagerness and happiness. Are we feeling a little bit lighter now?
Yeah.
Enthusiasm. And number 2 is passion. That's a kind of a buzzword, you know, when it goes like, what do you want, or what do you want to do with your life? Have passion for your dreams, or passion for your you know, a goal, and it's a very important thing. I would add with passion, number 2 is inspiration. You know, to be inspired. I think it's very important. That I mean, these are just words, but that word is not in there. I'm adding it. I officially added it to the list. And number 1, drum roll, please, is there's a bunch of words to describe this, but joy, knowledge, empowerment, freedom, appreciation, and love. Of course, love is up on top. So that's the emotional guidance scale. And you can find different guidance scales like this. Hawkins had one.
He worked
But-
for a couple of decades, actually, recording people's energy, vibration in these different stages, and actually, it's all over the, just Google vibrational scale of consciousness, Dr. David Hawkins, and it's a little bit different, but he actually ties a number in with them, and then love is like
Yeah.
500 above, and that's actually the vibrational frequency that you're vibrating at. He's got guilt and shame down at the bottom. So there's some similarities, a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
different though. That's
Yeah.
like the lowest level in that
Yeah.
work.
He did the kinesthetic testing, you know, with the arm, that kind of thing. What's
I
that?
said, I made it to 8 from the bottom.
You made it to 8? Yeah, all right. All right. But if states is very important. In the Anapanasati or the Satipatthana Sutras, you know, Buddha talked about working with the body. You know, first of all, like, kind of you know, when we're using the breath, we're working with the body in meditation. You know, we can use the body sensations and things like that. And he also mentioned feelings. You know, a lot of you know this, but it's worth reviewing. And feelings are the pleasant or the unpleasantness of what our senses come into contact with. And there's nothing we can do about the feelings. They're, just like there's nothing we can do about the sensations of the body. They're there. They're just something to look at and something to kind of study. But when we get into mind states, and that's what these are, states. This third area of the anapanasati, or mindfulness of breathing, and he talked about how important they are to understand and just know that when we're in these states, and whether we're actually identifying with them, or you know, and how to work with them and how to notice them. It's like if we have a lot of pleasure from, you know, a pleasant feeling, that's going to bring upon a state for us. And there's always a state present. And if we want to be like 100% mindful, even right now, we can just, to be really mindful, we could ask ourselves, what state am I experiencing at this moment? And what we do is immediately start searching and feeling and seeing where we're at, you know, within this state. And as soon as we identify that state, it changes. You know, everything is very impermanent, you know, it's very fluent. You know, we'll notice that we're in a state of, you know, name one, you know, like doubt. You know, and if we notice that state and look at it and sit with it in our meditation, we'll notice that as soon as we label doubt, it starts changing. Doubt changes into, like, there's a discovery there, you know, and it kind of falls away. And in most cases, when we see the state for what it is, like a negative state, all of a sudden we start climbing up that ladder, you know, up this chain, and we find ourselves, you know, experiencing things like inspiration, you know, to be inspired, to, you know, feel fortunate for what we are working with, because that we have the opportunity to, you know, learn from all these different states that we're noticing, and, you know, really literally climbing that ladder and finding ourselves in that place where we're discovering our you know, our state that is really a part of us, and that is, again, that love, you know, the highest one.
Do you consider contentment gratitude also?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. And again, these are just labels, words, you know, but they are, I think it's important, you know, for us to label and understand these.
Shane, is the scale that in terms of this particular book that you said the scale came out of this book?
No, this piece of paper was in the book.
Oh, I see.
It was like
Part of the teaching.
it was a bookmarker. Yeah. No, so it didn't
No,
come.
I was going to ask if this is something that it's a linear thing that you're joy is at the top. Are you supposed to work towards that? Is that
Yeah,
what
just
the scale-
just through awareness itself. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. If anybody wants to take a picture of that or something, yeah, feel free to do so, and just something to work with in our meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're kind of running out of time here. I'm sorry, I ran over a couple minutes. If there's anything I can question or
Yeah, Chris, I just had a,
oh yeah,
the trap I always seem to fall into is all the lower stuff, that's wrong, that's bad, that's something
Yeah.
I don't want, right? And the higher stuff, this is good, and this is what I should be shooting for. And it doesn't work that way, right? It's not a dualistic thing. All this stuff is whatever. I mean, grief, for instance, was the lowest of them all. I'm currently in grieving class, and grief is the natural response to loss kind of thing.
yeah.
I'm gonna be careful about being judgmental, although I'm naturally judgmental about stuff.
Yeah, you know, the idea is to know that we're always going like this, you know, throughout all of that, you know.